everyone. Happy St. Patrick's Day here from The Good Doctors. As ever, Dr. Erin is with you.
Dr. Kristen.
And today we are continuing our coverage of the best and worst of Irish films and talking about films that cover the great and fantastic Irish diaspora. Being a member of said diaspora, this is something I have a little bit more theatrical knowledge of than Dr. Donnelly, but she's certainly seen a couple of the films we'll be talking about and certainly knows a lot about the diaspora since she is an adjacent member living with her husband back in America now. And I'm sure we can make our own film about the stereotypes of Irish Americans especially, and I should stipulate that that is the Irish diaspora we will be focusing on. If there are movies out there about the Irish diasporic experience elsewhere in the world, please point them towards me. I haven't seen any. I can't think of any off the top of my head unless there's like, oh, there was that one in Australia with Ned Kelly. I just remembered this as we're filming.
Oh, Heath Ledger.
With Heath Ledger, yes. The Ned Kelly one, which is vaguely diasporic. I mean, they were of Irish descent, I think, or Irish living in Australia.
I just remember that they were criminals.
Yeah, I mean, Ned Kelly's a real person, but I don't remember the like specifics of it.
No.
So, I mean, for our money, and I speak for both of us because Dr. Kristen hasn't seen some of the other movies I'm going to talk about, but she trusts my judgment. The best movie about the Irish diasporic experience ever made was the movie Brooklyn.
Yes.
Which if you haven't seen it, 2015 Saoirse Ronan film, where Saoirse's character emigrates to Brooklyn from a very small town in County Wexford, Enniscorthy. And I saw it when I was living in Ireland, and it was this weird combination of like, I live in a foreign place and I miss my family, but Ireland's my home now, and like, two of my girlfriends and I went, and we were all Americans or American adjacent, and we came out like just a heaping ball of nonsense, not expecting to be that emotionally affected. But if you want to understand a simply beautiful story, I think it's based on a book by Colm Tolbeen, now that I remember.
It is, yes, which is also a beautiful book if you are more of a book person. All of his writing is achingly beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that book.
And they certainly, I think, brought out the spirit of his writing in the screenplay and in the adaptation for it. Absolutely fantastic. On the worst end of things is a movie that many people will have seen from the 90s, back when Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman made a bunch of movies together because they were married and Scientologists. And the movie Far and Away, which I think has to rank, Tom Cruise's accent has to rank as one of the worst Irish accents ever done on film.
I think it's made lists as the worst one.
Oh,
it's
been on many, many a list. If you're at home watching this right now and you want to entertain yourself with listicles, there's some pretty great listicles out there of best and worst Irish accents. I mean, I can't vaguely remember the plot. Him and his wife have to emigrate because they're like to escape probably the British. I don't know. It's been a long time since I've seen it. There's a lot of escaping that happens in Irish diasporic films.
So much escaping. Everyone's hungry.
Yeah.
And escaping. That's really what it comes down to.
So I don't know if this one was during the famine or not, or I don't remember the specifics. It's a terrible movie. Don't watch it unless you just want to entertain yourself. Find clips online. There's a really terrible scene where Tom Cruise is boxing. Like, I think they have moved to New York before they eventually emigrate further west. They get involved in like the Oklahoma land rush. And
oh, good Lord.
Yeah, because they just because they're Irish and they just want land, right? Like, that's all the Irish people want.
I wish that was a stereotype, though. I wish that it's not.
It's not, though. And you know it's not.
So this is one of the things that's really interesting about being somebody who's Irish adjacent. there are things about the diaspora as represented in cinema that are pretty true. It is very, very important to a whole lot of people who are born on the island of Ireland to own land, because it is something that historically was denied to them for a long time, and memories are long.
Mm-hmm.
And this was something that my husband and I dealt with when we were looking to buy a house, because I was like, let's get an apartment. He's like, it doesn't come with land. I was like, okay, this is important. So that's really interesting. And there are certainly, but then so we have that kind of Irish diasporic experience, the longing to go home, being in two places at once for the rest of your life, which is very common of any diasporic or expatriate experience.
Right.
And then you have the category of Boston Irish movies that all seem to involve the mafia.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I had to categorize movies about Irish immigrants, it's, the historical struggle of immigration, which is Brooklyn and far and away.
Yeah. And
then the Irish mafia. I've never seen the movie The Boondock Saints, but I'm assuming it's about Irish crime.
The Departed certainly is.
Yeah. I've seen the movie The Departed, which is about the Irish mob in Boston.
Is Gangs of New York, is somebody Irish in Gangs of New York?
Oh, yeah.
You can see how important these movies are to us.
Gangs of New York is another one I forgot about. Yeah, what's your man from In the Name of the Father?
Daniel Day-Lewis, who is Irish.
Who is, yeah, he's the Irish. Is he Irish or is he New York?
In real life, in his human self, he lives in Ireland.
Yes, no, I know. I meant in the movie.
Oh, I don't remember. I saw it and then I aged during that movie.
Or is Leo Irish? I don't remember. But again, very similarly, immigrant adjusting experience. There's another movie that came out in the 90s that my family all loved that I know you haven't probably even heard of, or if you have, you haven't seen it, called The Brothers McMullen, which is about an Irish family, an Irish American family in the 90s, going through family things in a very Irish way, but I'm pretty sure that's also set in Boston. So, if you're from a completely different non-Western cultural background and you watch movies, you're going to think everybody ends up in New York and Boston, which isn't false. A lot of people ended up in New York and Boston, but a lot of people ended up elsewhere.
Yeah, Baltimore, for instance, had a huge Irish population for a long time. They don't anymore, but that was ships from Cove to Baltimore were huge. We don't ever talk about the Irish in Baltimore. Yeah, Irish in Pittsburgh, Irish in, we talk about Chicago, New York, and Boston.
Yeah, Philly gets in there sometimes, but not really. Even though there's a huge Philly contingent of Irish. My family came through Baltimore. And went straight on to Pittsburgh because they knew a priest, which is a stereotype that happens both in film and in real life.
You find your people. I think an important part of Irish diasporic history, and this is true, I know, for Italian diaspora and Polish diaspora as well, just because those are kind of the three that we have here in Philly that I hear stories about a lot, is that there wasn't, if you didn't speak American English, and you didn't understand the rules and regulations of Ellis Island, you just trusted whatever the letter that came over, giving you instructions, told you.
Yeah.
It wasn't like you could Google another place to hang out. You just went to where your family already was, or the person who emigrated 3 years ago from your same town. Yeah. And so you just went to where things were already happening. Why would you start completely fresh with no resources? Yeah. That's never actually the story of America as much as we pretend it is. Nobody started anything completely by themselves over here. We all kind of traveled in groups.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And there's a huge German population in Pittsburgh as well. And I know half my family is German, and that's entirely how German people ended up in various parts of the world.
Yeah. Scottish and Danish. That's my family. They came over, around that time. I am both around the Ellis Island, both of sides of my family emigrated kind of around that era of emigration. Yeah. And you went to where you already knew people were.
Yeah. And so I mean, this is one of our shorter lists of recommendations and discussions for films. Certainly watch Brooklyn. It's available on Amazon Prime to rent. I know because I just rented it the other day and watched it. Stay far away from Far and Away. I can't emphasize that enough. Just find a YouTube clip if you really want to see how bad Tom Cruise is. And also Nicole Kidman. I mean, I want to like be equitable in how awful their Irish accents were. Hers is a little bit better just because I think her Australian-ness. Americans are terrible at Irish accents. All you ever need to see is Brad Pitt attempt one several times in the 90s and into the 2000s. Snatch is one of his worst ones where he attempts like an Irish traveler accent, which is bad. No. But he also plays, I think, an IRA terrorist in like the Patriot game or something. And it's equally as horrible. But yeah, just diasporic films in general, I think, are a good way to learn about the movement of people and how people find community and find relationships with land and people and culture. So we'd certainly encourage you to find them, whatever diaspora you are interested in. But on St. Patrick's Day, obviously, we had to talk about Irish America. It was the law.
If you're looking for a good way to celebrate Paddy's today, my money as a non-diasporic entity would be on Brooklyn. A story that can really kind of capture what it felt like from every document we've ever read, that this is the accurate historical experience. But realistically, Paddy's is about family and is about being with people that you love and potentially only tolerate because that's family, and eating. Not corned beef and cabbage, but whatever the land and the sea have given you in that time. So in March in Ireland, that's a lot of seafood because very little else grows during the winter. So wherever you are watching this, if you're watching it on March 17th, we'd encourage you to find a good snack somewhere in your social distancing.
Yes.
And watch a movie, maybe even online with a friend, to learn a little bit about what family looks like in other places.
Yes, and obviously we haven't mentioned the coronavirus outbreak at the start of this video, but we are filming this around St. Patrick's Day in the year of our Lord 2020. So if you're thinking about doing anything for St. Patrick's Day, we would advise you to please follow the guidelines of your local health organization, depending on where you're watching this in the world. In the United States, certainly that means stay at home and try as best you are able to create community and family virtually so that we can all keep everybody safe.
Absolutely.
That's all we've got. We will be back next week for our continuing best and worst of Irish films, talking about romantic stereotypes, which is going to be so much fun. And we have only about 35 movies on my growing list of
many feelings
that count within that category. So lots to discuss next week, everybody. Take care.
Bye.